Well, welcome back into the podcast, everybody. My name is Carrie, and this is the Integrative Health Simplified podcast. And today I have with me my friend, Michelle. I'm really excited about this conversation because I got to know Michelle when I stayed in Asheville for a couple of weeks this summer and just really, really enjoyed our conversations and thought, wow, she would be amazing to bring onto the podcast to discuss some of these things because she's a personal trainer. And so she has insight into strength training and all the great benefits of that and just a lot of health related things in general. So Michelle, I'm so glad you're here. And I would just love it if you take a few minutes to just share a little bit about who you are, your background, and just so the listeners can get to know you better.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Carrie. My name is Michelle, and I am the owner of Asheville Personal Training in Asheville, North Carolina, in the mountains. I've been a personal trainer for about 12 years now. I was originally pursuing physical therapy, and that route led me down this path where I learned a lot about corrective exercise. I learned a lot about how diseases and injuries affect exercise, and then I ended up beginning my own personal training business.
Yeah, and I know you do a lot of training in your personal time, correct?
Yeah, I'm currently training for a half Ironman, so it's a part-time job.
For sure. So didn't want to skip over that because that is a big part of who you are as well. You're very active, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm in this series just talking about women's health, and it's titled Women's Health Fact or Fiction, because I do feel like there's a lot of just things that maybe we've heard or maybe we've talked to our friends about, and just what is actually true and what's not. And so we've been through this series. I've had a couple of guests on. I've done some solo episodes, and I wanted to really focus in on this topic of strength training and just what happens to our muscle over time, just so that you can be more informed, that you can take measures to add in strength training or just edit your workouts to fit where you're at in your life and to hopefully work with what your body needs. And so that's kind of the conversation that hopefully we can have today and just shed some light on this subject. But Michelle, just in your training and what you've seen working with lots of different clients one-on-one, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think strength training is one of the most important aspects of physical fitness because we benefit from it, not just while we're strength training, but throughout the entire day, throughout our entire lives, because it's about building that muscle, building body composition that benefits our health in so many ways.
Yeah, for sure. And so we were just chatting right before we hit record about just how so many women, I think they want maybe quick results. Maybe this is the only thing. Maybe I should say maybe things have worked for them in the past, but they're not quite working for them as they age. And so I'm just wondering from your perspective on what you've learned, when should we kind of start to think about training differently as far as how our body, changes with age and, how we could make our workout routine work for us a little bit better.
Sure. Yeah. I have a unique perspective in what I do with one-on-one personal training is people usually come to me after trying something that they've heard works or, that's a fad or something like that. And they're like, I'm not getting the results that I wanted. What am I doing wrong? Right. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it's overtraining or doing one type of a workout too frequently because they're like, oh, well, this high intensity workout is what they said, what I need to do to lose weight. And I'm just going to do that 7 days a week. Right.
Yeah.
And so I always just take a very thorough kind of background of what have you been doing, what's been working, what hasn't been working, and then kind of make adjustments from there.
Yeah. And I think just as we age, and there's so many different things that go into what is going to be best for you, for sure. And I think that's what's so unique about what you do. And I know that you're in Asheville, and of course we have listeners from probably all around the world. So finding the right workout you might need to go in and try to work with a personal trainer to really get a good routine going that's going to work for you, I should say. because there are so many factors. And just to speak to why something might not be working, as far as, you've done this in the past and now it's not working, you've plateaued, or maybe you're putting on weight. I think it's so important to think about what else is going on in your life, under eating and stressors in work or home, or maybe a divorce or a death in the family. Like, I could go on and on. There's so many different stressors that we could really look to that is affecting. It's not just calories in, calories out. It's not just, I'm going to do this workout and I'm going to get 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think that it's important to, again, look at what has worked, yes, but also evaluate where you are right now and seek the help of a professional. What have you seen from somebody that maybe is in that position, what shifts have worked for them?
Yeah, like I was referring to the person who might be overtraining.
Yeah.
They come in and they're like, I want to sign up for personal training with you 4 days a week and go really hard every day, right? And because that's what they've been doing. I'm like, well, let's cut it back maybe 2-3 times a week, do maybe some heavier lifting, lower intensity,
Mhm.
and and eat more maybe, and see what happens, especially for the person that has, a high stress,
Mhm.
a list of high stressors in their life, kind of the stress inventory that I take. Um, and I've had clients that train for a while, and they go on vacation and they're so scared that they're going to go on this vacation, they're going to gain 5-10 pounds, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm always so excited when I hear that they're going on vacation, because that gives their body an opportunity to see what would happen when it's not as stressed. And stress
Yeah,
can be even exercise, right? I'm not saying
for
just
sure.
in stress of life or lack of sleep and things like that, but even exercise is a stressor. So we have to consider that.
Mhm.
And then they'll come back from vacation. They're like, I lost 5 pounds, 10 pounds in a week, just from the body kind of resetting and working properly.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, because so often we feel bad because, well, I should back up. There are two different sets of people. I find people that are just overtraining, not eating enough, that kind of category. And then there are people that aren't doing hardly anything, right? They're very sedentary and they might be overeating. So it's hard to put, obviously there's going to be people in both categories and everywhere in between, but what I find is we do want this formula to follow that is going to work for us. And sometimes it's not as cut and dry as that. And so you went back to just people under so much stress, and then exercise is a stress also. And that might sound crazy, but exercise is a stress. Whenever we are doing strength training, or doing cardio or HIIT or anything like that, we're going to have to mount a response for energy in our body, which usually is cortisol and adrenaline and things such as that. And if your body's already sort of tired out and it's been under stress for a very long time, that is going to work against you at that point, because it's just this overabundance of these stress hormones, and that can really play a huge role in weight and blood sugar and hormones and all of these things. And so I think that's something to definitely look at when you think about what is right for you. And we have to look at what our body's telling us. Obviously, it's giving us signs and symptoms all the time, but sometimes we just, I don't know, we just keep doing what we've been doing because that's all we know. And we just kind of put out the fires that, that our body's trying to show us what's going on.
Right, right. And then speaking to the person that is maybe trying to get into strength training, knowing the benefits of it, but hasn't done it before, right?
Yeah.
Studies show that even 30 to 60 minutes of strength training per week has significant health benefits. And so that could even be enough, right? It's not, fitness in general is often looked at as all or nothing,
Mhm.
but just starting somewhere has huge benefits.
Yes, for sure. I know that personally, like I've had seasons in my life that I couldn't spend as much time in my home gym. I don't necessarily go to the gym, but I've always been the person that has tried to have the mentality of something is better than nothing. Even it's like 5 or 10 minutes is better than nothing, and it might not be where I want to be, but that's okay too. And so I think sometimes we're really hard on ourselves, and that could actually be stressful. Like all these things can actually be working against us, and we're thinking we're doing the right thing. But I wanted to kind of go back to muscle and female. It is true that we begin to lose muscle over time. Do you know about what age that is?
Yes, studies show that at the age of 35 is when we start losing muscle mass, and that significantly increases after about age 60, up to about 3% of muscle mass loss per year. So that's pretty significant when we think about it, but that doesn't mean that we're doomed, right?
Yeah, right.
Strength training can slow that process or even stop that process. And so many studies show individuals improving on strength gains as they age,
Mhm.
especially those that start later. Have never really been in exercise strength training. You
Mhm.
can start 60, 70 years old and still get strength benefits and gains.
I do love that you can do it at any age, and you can start anywhere you are. Like you don't have to go in there and lift 30 pounds, 30-pound dumbbells. I mean, certainly not. They have lower weights that you can start with. There's always modifications to exercise, and I think that is a big barrier that people, they maybe hear the benefits of strength training as they get older. Not only is it building muscle, but it's also bone health. That's a big one with strength training. And so we hear that, people might hear that, but then they do feel really overwhelmed at the thought of, where do I even start?
Mhm.
What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think as we age, we start compiling different injuries and diseases and limitations, and
Mhm.
that often is what discourages people from beginning an exercise program.
Yeah.
But I think those should rather be factors of why you should get into it, right?
Right.
Um, and I know that might be a little bit more challenging of what works for me because I have this knee pain over here,
Mhm.
I have chronic fatigue and things like that, but just
Right.
do what works for you and
Mhm.
seek a professional that can give you specific exercises maybe to work around those limitations.
Yeah. And then two, you're not always going to need to get personalized help, but in some situations like that, it can get you going in the right direction and you might not need it anymore. I think sometimes we feel like we have to do the same things, and it's just, if I can't afford personal training for years and years, then I shouldn't even start it. But that's not really the case. And I'm sure you see that a lot, that you help people get a really good routine and then they might could do it at home even.
Right. Yeah. And just speaking a little more into the diseases,
Mhm.
so many research studies connect sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass, to chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and so that might be because of the sedentary lifestyle, or things just compile on each other, right? So control what you can control, and
Mhm.
if you can begin a healthy habit of exercise, no matter how small, it's going to benefit your health in all those areas.
For sure. And just talking about how muscle mass decreases with that time, and it starts about 35. I just think about all
Yeah.
the other changes that are happening then. Like, I mean, a lot of people are getting out of their childbearing years, and that really takes a toll on your body. A lot of times your job is maybe increasing in responsibility. That's another stress. There's a lot of stress that compounds right there, which is also playing a part in your overall health, as well as if you don't have as much muscle, that is also going to affect other parts of your health. So I just think about it as far as, I think sometimes we just think we're just going to get older and these things are just going to happen. That's just normal. And I mean, yes, some things are normal, but a lot of things are common that happen to women around 40, 35 to 40, and then on up. And I think sometimes we just think there's nothing we can do about it, but that's just not the case.
Yeah, yeah, Carrie, just on a personal note, 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease,
Mhm.
and I dealt with so much nerve pain, joint inflammation.
Yeah.
And at first, I was like, I need to just slow down and relax. And maybe for a time, that was what my body needed.
Mhm.
But once I got into consistent exercise again, I noticed that when I was in least pain, like throughout the day, I'm not saying just while I'm exercising, but
Yeah.
throughout the day, was when I was consistently moving my body. The There's that phrase, motion is lotion. And it's so true, you know, getting circulation into our joints. So if you have joint inflammation, joint pain, it doesn't, you don't have to go for a run or lift heavy weights, go for a walk and see how your body responds, right? Because you're increasing circulation. Um, and then also, I think God created our bodies to move, right? The tagline at my gym is meant to move. And so do what you can and recognize what's going on in your body and just do what you can around that.
Yeah, I do think culture has really not done us any service or done us a disservice really by thinking that it has to be all or nothing. You know, we have to be going to the gym for X amount of minutes, X amount of times a week, or it doesn't matter. But that's just simply not the case. Like any movement that we do, even walking is excellent, especially as you get older, just having that continue, you know, trying to walk as much as you can and adding in some strength training. That's what I usually suggest to clients because a lot of them are very stressed out and they don't need to be doing much, if any, cardio. They don't need to be doing HIIT workouts or anything like that. So I think that it's important to take Michelle's advice. Do what you can when you can, and your body's going to strengthen over time. It's not going to be sometimes it's going to be a slow process, and that's okay too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my oldest client is 94 years old, a 94-year-old woman. I've been working with her for about 8 years. And in the beginning, she struggled to do 3 sit to stands, right? And now she can do up to 10, 12 fully supported body weight squats, you know? And so it's so neat to see those improvements. And as she always says, you got to just keep chugging, you know, just keep moving. And
I love that.
yeah.
If that's not goals, I mean, I don't, you know, it's like we should be training so that we are healthier as we age and that so we can do the things that we want to do, whether that's play with our kids or grandkids or just continue to be active and in whatever way we like to. I think sometimes we approach fitness as I want to be bikini ready or I want to have X amount of, I mean, I don't know, whatever it might be. There's so many different ones, but they're very short-term goals. And I think that doesn't really help us when we think about having a good mindset around movement. So that's something else that might need to swap for you.
Right. Yeah, those goals are, I think, fine in themselves, but yeah, for a time, right? I don't think we can train for a bikini competition our entire lives because that actually beats your body up pretty hard. You have to put your body through some extreme things to make that happen.
Exactly.
I agree.
So, okay, wrapping up the conversation on strength training and just creating healthy habits around this as we age, knowing that we lose muscle. What are some tips that you could give people that do want to get into strength training that maybe, you know, aren't currently doing it? Just some healthy habits to have.
Yeah, a couple times a week, try to hit all the major muscle groups, you know, so lower upper body, you know, there's different ways of saying, you know, should you do your entire body workout in one day or split it up different days of the week? You know, it's different. There's different approaches. There's not a specific right or wrong. But just find a habit or a routine that works for you a couple days a week and something that you can stick to and something that fits into your schedule, right?
Yeah, for sure. And think about that. I think about also being well fueled for strength training or just whatever exercise you're doing, not even strength training. Because if you think about building muscle, that takes raw materials. Protein is often a really big part of that. So just making sure you're getting enough protein, which is about 100 grams a day for women, give or take. That is super important. And I find most people are either under eating overall or not eating enough protein in general. So that's something that just to consider there.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention when we are strength training, our muscles are actually breaking down, like the fibers are ripping apart. And where the muscle building and the muscle quality change happens is in the recovery and in the fueling, both with food and hydration is imperative to that muscle building and recovery.
Yeah. So, you know, you have to make your own decisions, but doing fasted workouts probably isn't the best idea if you're thinking about trying to build muscle and trying to limit the amount of stress that's on your body, especially if you're already stressed with other things. So just think about how you can fuel your body with whole foods that God gave us. That is going to really help you out in the process. And, as you're starting, I guess personally, like if I'm just starting something new, I'm not going to jump in and try to, maybe even you were lifting heavier weights and you haven't been for a while. Start off smaller, start off with less days. Like you don't want to be, the goal isn't always to be super duper sore and that's the only way you feel like you did something. I think it's just taking it slow and building muscle over time that's going to be the best long lasting, but you could speak to that a different way. Is that your thoughts as well?
Yeah, the harder we push ourselves in our workouts, the more we need to sleep, the more we need to eat in order to recover from those workouts. So yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, as we age, our muscle decreases. And so we can fight against that by strength training. It's going to help us with so many other lifestyle things as far as keeping up with the things that we want to do lifelong, but also it's going to help with a lot of disease prevention. And it's also going to help with detox and hormone balance and all of these different things that you might not have really put two and two together with that all those things make a difference. And so I'm really so glad you joined me for this conversation. I think it's one that's really important that sometimes we tend to overdo or maybe not do enough of. Like we're in this extreme mentality. Find something that works for you and that you can stick with, that you can be consistent with. And I think you'll see over time, it's really going to pay off in a lot of different ways. Maybe not only things you can see outside, but a lot that you can't really see from the outside will be benefited from that as well. But before we hop off, I'd love for you to tell our listeners how they can kind of just, find you if they have questions or if they're in the area, if they want your services.
Yeah, we are a brick and mortar here in Asheville, North Carolina, but we're on Instagram, Asheville Personal Training, and my personal account's Coach Michelle K.
Awesome. Well, I will link all those things. And I'll also, of course, link your business website as well so they can contact you if they're local. But thank you so much. I just love following along with you. You share a lot about your dog, Riley. You share a lot about training. You love to mountain bike and you love to hike and all those things. It's just great to follow along. Sometimes I'm really jealous because I love the mountains and I'm not close to them anymore. But I just appreciate your time here. And we encourage everybody to just be inspired to go out and try to figure out how you can incorporate a little bit more strength training into your long-term approach to your health. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Carrie.